Angel of Death. The Charles Cullen story. Charles Cullen was an unassuming nurse. He blended in with the hospital staff. Patients saw a quiet, helpful man, but Cullen hid a dark secret. He was a serial killer, responsible for the deaths of dozens of patients. For over 16 years, Cullen moved from hospital to hospital. He left a trail of death in his wake. He used his position to gain access to vulnerable patients. Cullen administered lethal doses of drugs, ending their lives. His crimes shocked the nation. How could a healthcare worker sworn to heal become a silent predator? The Cullen case raised disturbing questions about hospital security and oversight. Cullen's story is a chilling reminder of the dark side of human nature. It exposes the vulnerabilities within the healthcare system. His case continues to haunt the nation, prompting calls for reform and vigilance against such horrors. A troubled past, early life, and warning signs. Charles Cullen's early life was marked by turmoil and tragedy. Born into a large Irish Catholic family in New Jersey, Cullen was the youngest of 8 children. His childhood was far from idyllic, marred by the death of his father when Cullen was just an infant. As a child, Cullen exhibited troubling behaviors. He was withdrawn and prone to bouts of depression. He also engaged in acts of cruelty towards animals, a known red flag for future violence. Later, Cullen attempted suicide multiple times, further highlighting his deeply troubled mental state. Cullen's struggles continued into adulthood. He grappled with alcoholism and mental health issues. These issues would plague him throughout his life and career, ultimately contributing to his horrific crimes. Despite his personal demons, Cullen pursued a career in nursing. He graduated from nursing school and began working in hospitals. However, his troubled past and unstable mental state foreshadowed the darkness that lay ahead. The warning signs were there, but they went largely unnoticed, paving the way for tragedy. Methods of murder, a killer's modus operandi. Charles Cullen's method of killing was cold, calculated, and effective. He used his knowledge of medications and hospital procedures to his advantage. His weapon of choice, a lethal cocktail of intravenous drugs. Cullen targeted patients who were already vulnerable, often those in intensive care or nearing the end of life. He would sneak into their rooms, often late at night when staffing was minimal. With chilling precision, he would inject his victims with overdoses of heart medications, such as digoxin and insulin. These drugs, in excessive amounts, would cause cardiac arrest, leading to a quick and silent death. Cullen's victims rarely stood a chance. They were often heavily medicated and unable to fight back. Their deaths, tragically, were often attributed to their existing conditions, masking Cullen's sinister actions. Cullen's actions were deliberate and premeditated. He carefully chose his victims and timed his attacks to avoid detection. His crimes were those of a cunning predator, hiding in plain sight within the very institutions entrusted with saving lives. Institutional failures, hospitals' role in the tragedy. The Charles Cullen case exposed a series of disturbing failures within the hospital system. Hospitals, meant to be places of healing, inadvertently enabled Cullen's killing spree, allowing him to move from one facility to another, leaving a trail of death in his wake. Several factors contributed to Cullen's ability to operate undetected for so long. Hospitals were often short-staffed, particularly during overnight shifts, providing Cullen with the opportunity to act unnoticed. Record-keeping was often lax, making it difficult to track medication discrepancies or suspicious deaths. Perhaps most concerning was the reluctance of some hospitals to investigate or report suspicious deaths. Fearing negative publicity or lawsuits, some institutions chose to quietly dismiss Cullen, rather than confront the possibility of a killer in their midst. These institutional failures allowed Cullen to continue his killing spree for far too long. The lack of communication and accountability between hospitals tragically allowed him to prey on countless victims. The Cullen case serves as a stark reminder of the importance of vigilance, communication, and a commitment to patient safety within healthcare institutions. For over 16 years, Charles Cullen operated under the radar, his crimes undetected. However, his reign of terror would eventually come to an end, thanks to the persistence of a detective and the cooperation of a former colleague. Detective Danny Baldwin of the Somerset County Prosecutor's Office began investigating a series of suspicious deaths at Somerset Medical Center in New Jersey. Cullen had worked at the hospital and quickly became a person of interest. Baldwin, along with detectives Tim Braun and Steve Francisco, discovered Cullen's history of moving from hospital to hospital. each move coinciding with a string of unexplained deaths. Cullen's undoing came when a former co-worker, nurse Amy Loughran, grew suspicious of his activities. Loughran had befriended Cullen, unaware of his dark secret. However, she noticed irregularities in his behavior and medication orders. Concerned, she contacted Detective Baldwin and provided crucial information that helped to build the case against Cullen. In December 2003, authorities apprehended Charles Cullen. Under questioning, Cullen confessed to killing as many as 40 patients. His chilling admissions shocked the nation and sent shockwaves through the healthcare system. The price of justice, trial, and sentencing. Following his arrest, Charles Cullen faced a slew of charges for his horrific crimes. The trial was a media sensation, captivating the nation with its gruesome details and the sheer scale of Cullen's killing spree. Prosecutors presented a mountain of evidence against Cullen, including medical records, witness testimonies, and Cullen's own chilling confession. Cullen's defense team argued that he was mentally ill and had acted out of mercy for his victims, claiming that he wanted to end their suffering. However, the jury was unconvinced. In 2006, Charles Cullen was found guilty of multiple counts of murder and attempted murder. He was sentenced to 11 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Cullen's trial brought a sense of justice, but it could not erase the pain and suffering he had inflicted. The families of his victims were left to grapple with the devastating loss of their loved ones, forever haunted by the knowledge that their deaths were preventable. Victims and families, the unending grief. The victims of Charles Cullen were mothers, fathers, grandparents, siblings, and friends. They were real people with families who loved them, their lives cut tragically short by a silent predator hiding in plain sight. The impact of Cullen's crimes on the families of his victims is immeasurable. Families were left to cope with the devastating loss of their loved ones, their grief compounded by the horrific circumstances of their deaths. Many struggled to comprehend how a trusted healthcare worker could commit such heinous acts. The betrayal of trust and the knowledge that their loved ones' deaths were preventable added another layer of pain to their grief. In the aftermath of Cullen's conviction, families of the victims filed numerous lawsuits against Cullen, the hospitals where he worked, and the staffing agencies that placed him in those hospitals. While no amount of money could ever compensate for their loss, the lawsuits provided some measure of accountability and a sense that justice had been served. Healthcare in the aftermath, reforms and reflections. The Charles Cullen case sent shockwaves through the healthcare industry, exposing vulnerabilities and prompting calls for reform. In the wake of this tragedy, hospitals and healthcare organizations across the country implemented changes aimed at preventing similar tragedies from occurring in the future. One significant change was the implementation of stricter background checks for healthcare workers. Hospitals began conducting more thorough investigations into the employment histories of potential hires, looking for any red flags that might indicate a history of violence or misconduct. Additionally, hospitals strengthened their policies regarding medication administration and disposal. They implemented tighter controls on access to medications, requiring more stringent documentation and authorization for dispensing certain drugs. Many hospitals also adopted electronic medication administration systems to track medication use and identify discrepancies more easily. Furthermore, the Cullen case highlighted the importance of creating a culture of safety within healthcare organizations. Hospitals began encouraging staff to report any suspicious activity or concerns without fear of retribution. They implemented anonymous reporting systems and provided training to help staff identify and report potential problems. A haunting reminder. Lessons for the future. The chilling story of Charles Cullen serves as a haunting reminder of the importance of vigilance, accountability, and a steadfast commitment to patient safety within the healthcare industry. While the reforms implemented in the wake of Cullen's crimes have undoubtedly made hospitals safer, his case continues to serve as a cautionary tale. Cullen's ability to operate undetected for so long exposed systemic weaknesses within the healthcare system. It highlighted the need for improved communication between hospitals, more robust background checks, and a culture that prioritizes patient safety above all else. The lessons learned from the Charles Cullen case extend beyond the walls of hospitals. His story serves as a stark reminder that evil can lurk in unexpected places, even within professions dedicated to healing and compassion. As we move forward, it is imperative that we remain vigilant. learn from the mistakes of the past, and work tirelessly to create a healthcare system that is truly safe for all. Only then can we honor the memory of Charles Cullen's victims and prevent such a tragedy from happening again.